We are joined by environmental champions, including one of the CLCPA's co-sponsors this morning, State Senator Pete Harckham. So I'm pleased to introduce him to say a few words.
Thank you, Julie. Good morning, everyone. If I've got to be perky at this hour, you've got to be perky. Good morning, everyone. Good to be here. Thank you. And many thanks to the League of Conservation Voters, all the sponsors for putting this together, and all of you for your advocacy. Because of you, we were able to get this passed last year, and now it's time for the rubber to meet the road. I just want to step aside for one quick second. You know, people are afraid with what's going on with the virus, some cases in New Rochelle, people wondering whether they can come to events or not. I've been on daily conference calls with the health commissioner, Dr. Howard Zucker. Please reassure folks that you cannot contract or spread coronavirus through casual contact. So coming to an event, something like this, everybody is perfectly safe. So, you know, I think it's important that we send that message that we need to go out and conduct our daily lives. And the odds are pretty slim that somebody's going to get infected and not through casual contact. So having said that, let's get back to the CPA and let's talk about Westchester, since that's the theme of it. One of the elements of the CLCPA is a just transition. You know, in order to meet these climate goals and greenhouse gas goals, we're going to need to very aggressively move to shut fossil fuel power plants. And so how do we look at a just transition? There's no guidebook, there's no textbook. And unfortunately, here in Westchester, we have become kind of the canary in the coal mine for this with the closure of Indian Point. And so this presents enormous challenges to the communities, to the impacted workers, and in many ways this will be a roadmap for how we can deal with this in other communities. So at Indian Point we've got anywhere between 800 to 1,200 workers on any given day whose jobs and livelihoods and families can be adversely impacted by this. You've got the village of Buchanan, which stands to lose 50% of their revenue, Henrik Hudson School District, 30% of their tax revenue, the fire district, the library district, both 50% of their tax revenue. Big impacts. What are the environmental impacts? Well, we've got, we already know that we have contaminated wells at the site, and we also know that the village of Buchanan will become a de facto nuclear storage site forever, because the federal government has never come up with a solution for the storage of spent nuclear fuel. So we've got enormous challenges as to how we do this safely and justly. A couple of the things that we're working on, Sandy Galiff and I last year passed legislation to give a level of protection to the workers at the plant, essentially saying that the people who work at the plant must be hired first for the decommissioning and paid essentially what they're being paid. What we don't want to see happen is the decommissioning company to hire workers from Mississippi and Tennessee and bring them in, pay them half of what the local folks were making, and then those people send those wages out, you know, send them back home. We want to keep those jobs going as long as we can. We want to keep the economic multiplier of their wages as long as we can. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed that, so we have put in new legislation, both Sandy and I. Actually, this is even stronger. The other one has to do with the spent fuel rods, is to allow the assessor of the village of Buchanan to assess the casks as real property so they can continue to get tax revenue in perpetuity. Enormous challenges on economic development. What we need to do in that region is really enable Cortland, Buchanan, Verplank, all those areas to grow so that their tax ratables grow, to replace the lost revenue. So there's some infrastructure challenges. We've already funded some sewer projects there. So to get the small businesses off of septic systems, they can now will have the ability to expand. So it's a multifaceted approach. The oversight, how are we going to do the oversight? Sandy and I have legislation that we're working on right now that would be an oversight panel. There are already a couple of panels. There's a citizens panel that the mayor and the supervisor have to kind of keep citizens informed. The governor has his task force, which I sit on, which kind of looks at macro issues, economic redevelopment, and labor. But what about the day-to-day? And there was some talk for a while about the having a citizens oversight board. Unfortunately, that was kind of a non-starter for the local officials. But what we learned in the process, there was a great symposium put on by many of the advocates, and we spoke to people around the country who've gone through this, and they said what you really need are an executive level panel with boots on the ground. Homeland Security, DEC, folks like that who have the ability to get into the plant and see what's going on a daily basis. So this is kind of a snapshot of what's going to be happening in other communities when we start closing other power plants down. So when we think about CLCPA in Westchester, you know, to me this is the biggest example of one aspect of it. I mean, obviously you'll spend the day talking about all of the things that we can do to reduce carbon footprint, to wean off of natural gas, especially, and other fossil fuels. But the just transition as we close some of these plants is going to be very important, you know, that we protect impacted communities, we protect the workers, and we protect the environment. So it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful conference. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Senator.